I do all my discussions like this completely unscripted, so at times I'll forget certain topics or points that I want to make. And in this one, I got off to a little bit of a slow start, so please bear with me in that. I'll get up to speed quite quickly in the video. On a second note, I do look like I've got a little bit of crazy eyes at the beginning of this video. Just understand I'm speaking to about 20 plus people surrounding me. And the camera had to be close because my wireless mic is not working at this time. And last and final note is I have a high level of respect and agree with people on the other side of this argument. The only issue I have is when people speak in absolutes and don't recognize that there are other ways and other methods, which is the point of filming this video.
Yep. All right. Today we're going to talk about lats and their usage on the bench press. So everybody, I think, understands that having a developed lats as a solid base is very useful on the bench press. But besides that, I would argue that it's something you can use as a tool if you overdevelop your lats to increase your bench press. And there's a number of people that think that that's not the case. And yes, you can have just a well-developed back that is a solid base and develop your bench press through improving all your pressing muscles. But an alternative method is developing your back, and I'll show you how that we're going to do that. But before we start, I'm going to have a little bit of a disclaimer. I'll do some things here in a minute that many of you may not be able to do, and that's due to you have to have a high level of scapular mobility, and in addition be able to tie that in with your deep spinal stabilization very well. And if you can't do those things, if you try to mimic maybe some of the things that I'm going to do, what will happen over time is your joint is not going to have a stable base, the shoulder joint itself, and what it'll do is begin tightening up your scapula, and from there that's going to decentrate that shoulder joint, which is going to lead to shoulder pain. So that said, we're going to move through some basics on the bench press. So the basic way the lats are involved on the bench press is with the cue that people often use, which is bend the bar. It's a great cue for people that already know how to do the bench press, but not necessarily a good one for newbies. So what we're really trying to do is engage the lats, particularly the lat at the subscap, and rotate in and externally rotate that shoulder and fire that hard. Boom. That does a few things. One, it allows us to compress the lats during the bench press, which will give us some driving power off the ground, which is important. And second, it's going to allow us to change our leverages later in the lift, and I'll get to that in a minute. So if I get in here and I go to bench, walk in there, externally rotate. So I go down. Right now, it's starting to stop me from touching my chest, just from the pressure in my lats. So obviously you want that. Now, typically as you're doing the lift, now you'll come out, flare the elbows, do some internal rotation, and finish the lift here. So the lats actually haven't done any work besides just holding you into this position, and then you release and come out. Some people feel that actually flaring motion is some work that the lats are doing, or upper back, to drive that bar upwards. It's not. So what you have is, you're doing a standard press without loading those lats. You're coming in here, touching your chest, and pressing up. What we lack there is we lack any horizontal movement. And horizontal this way. So most people think straight line press, or a lot of people think straight line press is a great way to bench press. It's the least amount of work. It's the shortest distance. But it does not matter because we're only working against gravity. So only the vertical direction is important. So by locking in here, I'm actually making the press longer. So I'm touching down here, and I'm going to finish up here. Boom, boom. So I've actually got horizontal movement. What that does for us, and I wrote an article on Elite FTS a number of years back on this, is it allows us longer distance to apply that moment arm over. So I'm still moving the bar against gravity 10 inches, let's say. Straight line press, 10 inches, seating it low, pressing back, 10 inches upwards, but maybe I'm moving it 14 or 15 inches. That allows me more time to apply that leverage over to complete the lift. You'll find this very effective for maximal effort benches, but for repetition bench, it may not make sense. And the reason is we're actually increasing our concentric time under tension. So, and to be specific, it is only concentric time under tension we're concerned with. So over the course of benching that rep may take a second longer, half a second longer, fraction of a second. You're not going to feel it for a 1 rep. It makes very little difference for a maximal effort. But when you have the additive effect of doing that for 10 reps or something, you're going to feel that take a toll on you. So that ties back. So that's really what this locking in there does for you. Is just allows you to get some mechanical advantage as you're going to the top. To release, keep the bar moving so it still has momentum even if it's moving in that horizontal direction, and then apply your force on it and finish, basically screwdriver that elbow in into that internal rotation, finish that out. So as of yet, I have not talked about how the lats can be used actually, if overdeveloped, to move that weight. So we're going to move into that next. So we've seen pretty much a typical bench so far. So now I'm going to set up the way I set up. So we're going to do, and you guys see me do my mobility work in here and what I do to get there, but I'm going to set up for the bench press. Boom. Going to transform my upper body here. Allows me to get into a different position. So I'm going to roll in here, work the press in, boom, boom. So take that bar down, still haven't touched. Now I'm going in here, boom. Look at my elbow position. Can you cue in on that for a minute? Let's see. My lats are stretched out. Now, I'm going to pull my lat to my body.
And externally rotate.
See this motion right here? Boom. That's lat engagement. That's all I'm doing right now. What's my hand doing? It's going up. So that's much different than here, where lats have no engagement to actually lift. And many of you will see this if you watch me bench. A lot of people accuse me of raising my butt. Watch my bench press. My butt raises on the descent and drives down on the ascent. What's going on and why I'm doing that is it's coming down, I'm stretching the lat even more, and then I'm closing the space. So we're actually cueing that lat. Now we're going to take it a step further. We went through finishing the bench with an internal rotation. It works, it's effective. It's not necessarily the best from a human motion standpoint, and not the only way to finish the bench using those mechanical levers. You can
Externally rotate.
And again, as we already discussed,
External rotation.
external rotation cues that lat, particularly the lat at the subscap area, boom, to fire. We're actually using it. So we can use that to bench press as well. So, and to get in here again, watch that lat position. Boom, 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 I'm down. And now I'm stretched and ready to engage that lat to fire up. It is only the first, let's look at that, about 3 inches of the press. So the pecs and the delts still must fire to finish that, unless you have such an explosive bench from firing those lats, which are a massive muscle and completely, well, much larger than the pecs. So we can fire that through there. We may be able to actually catch and fire complete through on the bench. But it is for a fact that the lat is engaging to pull my elbow to my body and also
Externally rotate.
both are actively working. So I haven't actually benched yet today, but we'll go ahead and try this. See what we see here. And I'm going to try to
Externally rotate.
as I bench this as well. Up, up. I may not be able to feel that and see that, but right here, I'm finishing like this through the motion. So stretching using lat, and in this area, I'm using the delts and the chest and firing through with an external rotation, which again uses the lats. So it is another method for utilizing the lats to bench press.
Here's a quick shot of some benching from earlier in the week. This is about middle of 6 sets that I did, 6 sets of 5 with 415. And you can see the explosion off the bottom that I'm talking about. And watch that elbow movement. And you can definitely see where I'm pulling and working to try to yank that elbow towards my body to initiate that drive
And
off
I
the
will
chest.
argue that you can improve your bench without bench pressing heavy and working the pressing muscles solely by developing the lats. I can do that for 6 months, work my lats, and come back and hit a PR on a bench press. And this isn't just theory, I've done it. So look back at my training log. November of 2010, I think, I detached 2 heads of my pec. And I was taken off of training for a year, is what they told me. I competed 9 months post. And I could only start bench pressing a month or 2 prior to the meet. And I walked in after 6 months of not benching, and I was benching in the mid 400s and benching at PR within a few weeks levels. And I only benched 650 at the meet because I did squat 1,010 at 220. We'll throw that out there, which put a little bit of strain on my pec prior to doing so. So there's a number of people out there saying that the lats don't need to be developed beyond that base level. And I agree, that is a method and it works. But to speak in absolutes and say that spending the effort to develop them beyond that level is not the right thing to do. There are other methods, there are other ways to lift. And we'll take a step back to saying that the lats are not a primary mover. So I'm going to take a step back to doing a bench, as I think that they're describing doing the bench, and having them not be a primary mover. They are not a primary mover on the deadlift. They are not a primary mover on the squat. But not being a primary mover does not mean they are not critical. Critical. So you guys here, or a number of you here on Saturday, I think I deadlifted 725 pounds for 10 reps. Okay? Not many people can do that. If you look at my training, the number one muscle that I spending my hypertrophy time on is the lats. My lats are very well developed. And still, if I do something like that, the muscle group that is a failure is the lats. Saturday I went home, took a nap, and woke up with my lats spasming because that was the most fatigued, even though they weren't doing work. To be able to maintain proper position on either the squat or deadlift involves a high level of lat involvement, even though they aren't moving the weight. And staying in position is critical of importance. Take a look at my 805x3 squat video, my 900 deadlift video. Perfect hip position and movement through the lift. You cannot have better position than what is shown in those videos, except for maybe a little minor head deviation. But outside of that, there is not but a person or two in the world that can mimic that effort within 50 pounds of my body weight. Doesn't happen by accident. This is developed. And it's developed with doing a lot of lat work.
One last thought to leave you with. Let's get back to basics here. If I spend a two-plus hour workout doing lat work, back work, and I never pick up less than 400 pounds, everything in my body is gonna grow. It's that simple. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check out my website, kabukiwarrior.com.